The flag of Israel is unveiled. Despite tremendous opposition, on the emblem on the flag is a blue-colored version of the Rothschilds' red hexagram or sign. The top line on the flag signifies the Nile River, the bottom to the Euphrates. These people plan on taking over the whole area. 800,000 Arabs, with the recent memory of the Deir Yassin massacre at the forefront of their minds, fled in panic. They asked for help from neighboring Arab states, but those states did not get involved, as they were no match for the Israelis, whose up-to-date military hardware had been supplied by the Jewish Stalinist regime in Russia. Following this assault, the Jews now controlled 78% of the former Palestine, as opposed to 57% that had been given to them illegally by the United Nations. The Palestinians, many of them Christians, were never paid compensation for their homes, property, and businesses stolen from them during this illegal Jewish assault, and these people ended up in slum refugee cities of tents. Furthermore, at least half of the Palestinians, in their hurry to flee, left their birth certificates behind. The State of Israel then passed a law that only those who could prove citizenship were allowed to return to Israel, thus meaning these 400,000 Palestinians could not return and lost all their property they had left there. Ashkenazi Jew David Ben-Gurion, one of the founders of Israel and its first prime minister, candidly described Zionist aims in his diary on the 21st of May 1948 as follows: "The Achilles heel of the Arab coalition is Lebanon. The Muslim supremacy in this country is artificial and can easily be overthrown. A Christian state ought to be set up there, with its southern frontier on the river Litani. We would sign a treaty of alliance with this state. Thus, when we have broken the strength of the Arab Legion and bombed Amman, we could wipe out Transjordan. After that, Syria would fall. And if Egypt still dared to make war on us, we would bomb Port Said, Alexandria, and Cairo. We should thus end the war, and would have but paid to Egypt, Assyria, and Chaldea on behalf of our ancestors." In 1949, on October 1st, Mao Zedong declares the founding of the People's Republic of China in Tiananmen Square, Beijing. He is funded by Rothschild, created communism in Russia, and also the following Rothschild agents: Solomon Adler, a former United States Treasury official who was a Soviet spy; Israel Epstein, the son of a Jewish Bolshevik imprisoned by the Tsar in Russia for trying to foment a revolution there; and Frank Coe, a leading official of the Rothschilds-owned IMF. In 1950, Israel passes their law of return, guaranteeing every Jew worldwide the right to dwell in the State of Israel. However, the Palestinians, even though they had lived there for 1,300 years, were denied that right. John Davitt, former chief of the Justice Department's Internal Security Section, notes that the Israeli intelligence service is the second most active in the United States after the Soviets. And of course, both Israel and the Soviet Union are run by an Ashkenazi Jewish leadership. In 1951, on the 1st of April, the Israeli secret intelligence agency, the Mossad, which will go on to terrorize the world, is formed. The motto of the Mossad is probably the most disgusting Secret Service motto in the world. It is, by way of deception, "Thou shalt do war." In 1953, N.M. Rothschild and Sons found the British Newfoundland Corporation Limited to develop 60,000 square miles of land in Newfoundland, Canada, which comprised a power station to harness the power of the Hamilton, later renamed Churchill Falls. At the time, this was the largest construction project ever to be undertaken by a private company. In 1954, the Lavon Affair, Israeli agents recruit Egyptian citizens of Jewish descent to bomb Western targets in Egypt. and plant evidence to frame Arabs in an apparent attempt to upset American-Egyptian relations. Israeli Defense Minister Ashkenazi Jew Pinhas Lavan is eventually removed from office, though many think really responsibility lay with David Ben-Gurion. A hidden microphone planted by the Israelis is discovered in the office of the U.S. ambassador in Tel Aviv. In 1955, Edmond de Rothschild founds Compagnie Financière Paris. In 1956, telephone taps are found connected to two telephones in the residence of the U.S. military attaché in Tel Aviv. In 1957, James D. Rothschild dies, and it is reported by the Rothschild-owned media that he bequeaths a large sum of money to the State of Israel to pay for the construction of their parliament building, the Knesset. He states that the Knesset should be a symbol in the eyes of all men of the permanence of the State of Israel. On page 219 of his book Tales of the British Aristocracy, L.G. Pine, the editor of Burke's Peerage, states that the Jews have made themselves so closely connected with the British peerage that the two classes are unlikely to suffer loss which is not mutual. So closely linked are the Jews and the lords that a blow against the Jews in this country would not be possible without injuring the aristocracy also. Maurice de Rothschild dies in Paris. Frederick Morton publishes his book The Rothschilds, in which he states, though they control scores of industrial, commercial, mining, and tourist corporations, not one bears the name Rothschild. Being private partnerships, the family houses never need to and never do publish a single public balance sheet or any report other of their financial condition. This attitude reveals the true arm of the Rothschilds, to eliminate all competition and create their own worldwide monopoly. In 1962, de Rothschild Frères establishes Emetal as an umbrella company for all their mineral mining interests. In 1963, on June 4th, President John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States from 1961 to 1963, signs Executive Order 11110, which returned to the U.S. government the power to issue currency without going through the Rothschilds' own Federal Reserve. Less than 6 months later, on November 22nd, President Kennedy is assassinated by the Rothschilds for the same reason as they assassinated President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. He wanted to print American money for the American people as opposed to for the benefit of a money-grabbing, war-mongering, foreign, satanic elite. This Executive Order 11110 is rescinded by President Lyndon Baines Johnson, the 36th President of the United States from 1963 to 1969, on Air Force One from Dallas to Washington, the same day as President Kennedy was assassinated. Another, and most likely the primary reason for Kennedy's assassination is, however, the fact that he made it quite clear to Israel's Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion that under no circumstances would he agree to Israel becoming a nuclear state. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz, on February 5, 1999, in a review of Avner Cohen's book Israel and the Bomb, states the following: the murder of American President John F. Kennedy brought to an abrupt end the massive pressure being applied by the U.S. administration on the government of Israel to discontinue the nuclear program. The book implied that had Kennedy remained alive, it is doubtful whether Israel would today have a nuclear option. Edmond de Rothschild establishes La Compagnie Financière Edmond de Rothschild, LCF, in Switzerland as a venture capital house. This later develops into an investment bank and asset management company with many affiliates. He also marries his wife Nadine, and they have a son, Benjamin de Rothschild.